Emulate the taste of like non-chicken nuggets. So, these nuggets are made from chicken, but they're made to emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Dope.
Oh, that's much better.
Edit all the blather out of your videos because my time is very precious.
Oh, that's fire.
Make it less teal and more
Cerulean? Sure.
Replace your background with something more fun? The cold void of outer space.
Let's boost that sound quality. Emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Dope.
It needs more style. It needs more clips, more gifs, more. Well, I might have made it too gnarly.
Hi, everybody. How are we?
Hooray!
We made it.
We made it.
We made it. We are, we had a little bit of an issue over at Crowdcast, so we hope you followed us over here to YouTube. Welcome to all of our now YouTube streamers. Ashley, how are you?
I'm great. I'm excited that Randall Schwartz is saying that it's GIFs, not GIFs. I fight the power.
GIFs, not GIFs.
Yes.
Well, it's
yes.
graphic, so it should be GIFs.
But you know.
Okay. All right. Fine. We can disagree, but we don't disagree about remote recording, right, Ashley?
Absolutely. We do not.
We do not. We love remote recording. We love podcasting. Tell me a little bit about who you are and what we're doing here today.
Okay. I am Ashley Hamer. I am the managing editor for Descript. I run the blog. There's tons of really cool stuff on that blog, which we call Creator HQ. Just tons of articles that will help you be a better creator and do stuff better. And then also on the side, I am an indie podcaster. I have a podcast called Taboo Science, where I will interview people with remote recording to make my episodes. So I have a lot of experience with this. And before that, I recorded over 1,000 episodes of a daily science show called Curiosity Daily, which also used remote recording. So I've got a lot of experience with this. And Arielle, who are you and why are you here?
Thank you so much for asking. My name's Arielle. I'm the community marketing manager here at Descript. Before this, I was at Squadcast, so I was the community manager there, which Squadcast is a remote recording platform, and I've been recording podcasts remotely for about 4 years now. So yeah, tons of experience between the two of us. We are going to have an awesome chat. I am just going to pull up some slides so that we can tell folks what we're doing here today. We can have a little bit of a schedule. We would love to know, oops, let me read you that. We would love to know from people as they are joining us, as they're joining us on YouTube, where you're joining us from, and what are you creating? What are you making? Are you making a video podcast? Are you making an audio only podcast? How are you making that? And what questions do you have? If you have questions, we would love to see those questions in the Ask a Question tab, the Q&A tab. I'm just getting ready to share my screen here, but it looks like it doesn't want to share the whole thing. So I'm just working on that. But Ashley, why don't you tell us a little bit about Descript and about Squadcast while I'm doing that?
Yeah, will do. So Descript, if you're not familiar, is an AI-powered audio and video editor, and its big claim to fame is that it lets you edit your audio or video straight from the transcript. So you can delete things, move things around, copy and paste, all the same things that you would do in a Word doc you do in Descript. So it's really intuitive, and it's a lot easier to use than a lot of just traditional waveform editors. And just recently, Descript acquired Squadcast. So now, as part of Descript's whole platform that lets you record, edit, and publish, you can now remote record as well. So you can do your interviews and your, recorded narration and everything all in one single platform, which is really exciting.
It is really exciting. And that is why I'm here today. I was at Squadcast. Now I'm at Descript, and we're all about remote recording. We are all about helping creators make the best things they possibly can with anyone, anywhere, and at any time. Recording in Squadcast, bringing it over to Descript, and then making all your editing dreams come true. So here is what we're going to cover today. we had a little bit of a welcome. So we'll move on right now to what is remote recording. We'll define some terms. Then we'll talk about our processes, Ashley and I, for the before, during, after the interview. And then, of course, our individual editing workflows. So again, we would love to know what your individual editing workflows are. So again, keep the comments coming. Keep telling us who you are, what your podcast is about, what your videos are about, what interviews you tend to conduct. And then we will leave time at the end for Q&A. And we would love to answer as many questions as possible. Christiana is in the chat. Christiana is our community manager. Hi, Christiana. Thank you for being here. She'll be answering questions in the Q&A tab. We are going to do our best to get to all of your questions. If you have specific questions that are more technical, we would encourage you to please join our Discord. We have our, we're going to show a Q&A, we're going to show a QR code in just a moment where you can join our Discord, because Marcelo, who is on our support team, answers questions in office hours every Wednesday. So we'll have information about that. But Christiana will do her best to answer a bunch of the questions. And then we will, of course, have some pop on at the screen at the end of our hour together. How does that sound, Ashley?
That sounds great. I'm excited.
Cool. Just a few reminders for folks. Please, again, use the Q&A section for questions. That way we can make sure they're all in one place. Use the chat for reactions, chatting, commentary, etc. We would love to hear from you throughout. If we freeze, please refresh your browser. If you're on YouTube, that shouldn't be a problem. But if you do have an issue, please refresh your browser. This session will be recorded. So if you are somebody who needs to pop out 30 minutes in, but you want to be there for the whole thing, don't worry. It will be available here on YouTube, and we will send a follow-up email. And if you want more help, something more specific that we don't get to today, please go to help.descript.com. And of course, join our community Discord, and we're going to show the QR code for that in just a moment. But first, if you are not yet a Descript Pro user, you can use code podcast30 at checkout, and I believe you will get a month for that. Cool. Okay, let's do some QR codes. So, Ashley, when did you first start using Descript?
I first started using Descript about, I think it was in 2021, and it was I was doing Taboo Science, and I did an episode on disability, and the guest that I had was a disability activist, and she said, yes, I will go on your show, but I have one requirement. You have to have a transcript. And I wasn't doing transcripts at that time. And the reason was I was just like, this is just a lot of work. It's just so hard to do a transcript for every episode. But I had heard of Descript. I knew it would do automatic transcription, and I could do editing in the same process. It wasn't an extra step. So I tried it out. I loved it. And then several months later, I got a job here. So that's how I started using it. How did you start using it?
Well, that's funny. That's how I got my job at Squadcast too, is that I was using Squadcast first before I started working at Squadcast. I think I was using it for about 6 months, and then I saw that there was a job opening, and I was like, I love this product so much. I would love to work for it.
Yeah,
and then Descript
absolutely.
came about a little bit later. I'd heard of Descript for a really long time. I'm on a bunch of different listservs for podcast and video creators, and everybody's always talking about Descript. And then finally, when Squadcast was acquired, I was like, let me make this my workflow. I am going to record and edit in Descript. I have a solo podcast, so I do everything there within Descript only. And then I have a podcast with a co-host. We record in Squadcast and then edit in Descript. So we're a Descript family here today, and I love that. And we would love for you to become a Descript person too. So use the QR code here to get your free month of Descript Pro. Thank you for sharing that QR code, Christiana. And again, Christiana's in the chat answering your questions. I believe, since we're not on Crowdcast, I was talking a lot about the Q&A tab. We don't have a Q&A tab because we're on YouTube. I think we're only streaming on YouTube. So please ask your questions there. We will get to them.
It's also a good thing to mention too, is because we're talking a lot about Descript, a lot about Squadcast. We're super fans, we're cheerleaders for this. But the stuff we're going to be talking about today is agnostic of the platform that you use. We're just going to be giving general remote recording tips. We will be mentioning Descript and Squadcast because that's what we use, but this is really applicable to anybody.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing me back. I was going to fangirl the entire time. So let's talk about what remote recording is. Let's break it down. Let's go back to basics. why would somebody use a remote recording app versus a remote conferencing app like Zoom? So why would you opt for something like Squadcast or Zencaster over something like Zoom?
Yeah, so it's really common to use Zoom because everybody uses Zoom, right? For our video calls and for work and for talking to people that are across the country. But the difference is that Zoom and other conferencing apps are designed for live communication, and they prioritize that. And remote recording apps are designed for remote recording. And so the big differentiator there is that they will actually do a local recording to each person's computer, just as if you were pressing record on QuickTime or something while you were talking, so that it doesn't actually get any of the network effects, any those blips and glitches that you'll hear in a Zoom recording. You'll actually have like really high quality recording at the end of your conversation, and so it's much better for podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when people start out, it is very easy to use Zoom because people know it. It has name recognition. You're using it for your meetings. You're using it for your family reunions, especially during the pandemic. You're using it for Zoom birthday celebrations, but it is made with conferencing in mind, not so much with recording in mind. Whereas Squadcast, Zencaster, Riverside, Iris, GetWelder, all of those are made with recording in mind, and they have conferencing aspects.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Cool. Should we hit some terminology?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, so we are going to define a few terms. We're going to define local recording. We're going to define double ender. We're going to define WAV versus MP3 versus MP4. And we're going to define multi-track recording. Let's first get to local recording. You touched on this just a moment ago, but specifically with places like Squadcast, you get what's called a local recording. What does that mean in terms of your computer and how it's storing things?
Yeah, that means that it is recorded locally. That doesn't help, but it basically means that your side of the conversation is actually recorded on your computer. It's not being recorded in the cloud or anything like that. It is being recorded where it is safe from your Wi-Fi and your network and anything else that could cause any problems to it. And so is the person on the other end of your conversation. Their track is being recorded locally to their computer, on their computer. Yeah.
And this means specifically using Squadcast as an example, when you're finished with your session, you will receive all of the files from all the people that were in the session with you. So with Squadcast, you get up to 10 people in a session. So you'll get 10 individual files. And if you're sharing screen, you'll get even more. So there are a lot of possibilities when it comes to that. We have a question that just popped up that I want to address right now. How can I replace Zoom with Squadcast? I love this question. Thank you so much for asking. So right now, what you can do is make an account at squadcast.fm, or if you're already a Descript user, you get access to Squadcast for free. And all you have to do instead of sending your guests a Zoom link is you can either share them, you can add their email address right into your Squadcast session so that they can become a part of your recording, or you can copy paste the link, put it into a calendar invite, or send it to them. They don't have to download anything. It is browser based. So it is super, super easy for anybody to join at any time, and all browsers, you can use all browsers to access Squadcast. So it's super easy. That is how you can replace Zoom with Squadcast. If you want more specifics on that, we can definitely get into it. Ashley, do you have anything to add to that?
No, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I think my favorite thing about it is that literally they don't have to download anything, because when you have a guest on your podcast, they're already doing enough for you. You don't want to make them download stuff and do all these things for you. So the ability to just click that link and boom, you're there is really it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see we have a bunch of questions popping up. I really appreciate that. And thank you to the folks who are keeping the chat lively. We will come back for some questions throughout. So again, keep it going, and we're going to define some terms. So Ashley, what is a double ender recording?
Yeah.
And feel free to pass it back to me if I'm asking you too many questions.
No, I might pass it back to you, because my understanding is that this is something I did all the time, but I just never called it that. I believe what it is a double ender is when each person on a conversation records themselves locally. We're going to say that word again, but actually on their computer, say with a recording app, and then sends that file later. Is that how it works?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Double ender basically just means that you have backups in place. You are recording, and you're recording both locally, and it is going into the Squadcast cloud. So we are saving two possibilities for you. So even if you don't get your primary recordings, you will have your backup recordings. We had a question.
Got it. So,
Yeah.
sorry. So Squadcast does the double under for you automatically.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of us, if there are people in the audience who have been doing this for a really long time before the era of Squadcast, we would go on to Zoom or we'd go on to Skype, and we'd also just hit record and actually have to upload that file to like Google Drive or Dropbox or something. And then maybe it would take forever to upload, and then it would take forever for the person to download it. And then if you had to like make edits, you'd have to send a whole new file. So it's just so much easier these days.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
aging myself clearly, but
We had this great question pop up that I want to get to. Since the tracks are recorded locally, does your remote guest have to send you their track, or can you access it without their participation? Ashley, what have you done in this situation?
yeah, no, that's it. It's on, if you're using Squadcast or a remote recording app, you get it automatically. The guest doesn't have to lift a finger.
You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
It's extremely easy, and it makes it foolproof. It makes it so that they really just show up, record, and then they can leave when the recording is finished. And then you've got your files. You go off and do your post-production.
Yep.
All right, next term for us to define is WAV versus MP3 versus MP4. So when you are downloading your files from Squadcast or from your remote recording platform, or even when you're on Descript making your edits and then you want to export your files, you have options for those exports. And those options here, for the most part, are WAV, MP3, or MP4. What is a WAV file? What is an MP3 file? And how do you choose between them?
Yeah. So this is basically the distinction between quality and small file size. So if you want a full lossless high quality file, mostly to do edits on, this is the reason you would do this, you want a WAV file. That's basically, if you're going to be editing the file, you want it to be WAV. If you're going to be uploading the file or to your podcast platform or sending it to someone, you want an MP3. MP3 is compressed. WAV is lossless. So WAV is lossless and high quality and large. MP3 is compressed and slightly lower quality and small, so it's easy to send. You can't actually upload a WAV file to your podcast platform. They only accept MP3. Then MP4 is video. So I've talked a lot about video podcasts, and that is one way that you can edit your video and audio podcast is by editing the MP4 file and then exporting just the audio and then exporting the video. So WAV and MP3, both audio formats, and then MP4 is video.
A lot of people like to edit with their WAV file and then export their MP3 and upload that, because the difference is really that your WAV file is uncompressed, your MP3 is compressed. Most people will not be able to tell the difference. Audio engineers can tell the difference. They are amazing people. Let's get to this question, which I found really relevant. Can Squadcast combine tracks? The answer is yes. You can combine tracks right within your Squadcast dashboard. However, that is sort of getting into how you like to edit things. So if you record your podcast on Squadcast and you don't want to make any edits at all, yes, you can combine your files right there. You can download them. You can upload them to your hosting provider, and you can go from there. However, a lot of people like to be able to edit their tracks separately so that you can edit out crosstalk, which means when people are speaking over each other, or maybe there's a siren in the background of my recording, but there's not a siren in the background of your recording. But if we combine it, we'll hear it on both of them. Whereas if it's just on mine and I'm not talking at the time, I might be able to take it out. So a lot of people do like to combine their tracks in order to make things easier, if you wanted to just upload your audio right away to your hosting provider. But if you want any semblance of being able to take control of the editing process, the post-production process, I usually recommend downloading the track separately and then editing in Descript separately.
Arielle, I think we just explained our next terminology, which is,
oh my gosh,
multi-track
what was that?
recording.
Multi-track recording.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you just explained, is that it records each person on a separate track and allows you to make changes to each individual track instead of being stuck with who was talking over who at various points in the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, that is our terminology definition portion of the evening. If you have more terms that you'd like to find, please, again, feel free to put them into the comments, and we will get to them throughout our conversation when relevant. And if not, we will get to them at the end. And of course, if you have any questions, we would love for you, or if you have any more specific questions, we would love for you to go to help.descript.com. I'm also going to quickly plug Marcelo's office hours. Marcelo is on our support team, and he does office hours every Wednesday on our Discord channel. And if you want to join that Discord channel, you can go to descript.com/community. And again, I will pull that up later in our conversation so that you can join us there. But Ashley, let's go to our next portion of the conversation. We're going to walk through the process of recording. We're going to talk about before, during, after, and then we're going to touch on editing. So let's talk about what happens before the interview when you're remote recording. What are your best practices?
Yeah, so the best thing I think you can do if you really want to have high quality audio and video, if you're doing that, is to send an email to your guest with the best practices for recording. So telling them to make sure that they're in a quiet room, preferably with lots of soft surfaces like curtains, carpet, pillows, to make sure that their devices are off, that they don't have any pets walking in and meowing like I do often, and also how to use their microphone. Sometimes, people will have these really nice microphones. I've had this so many times. Like someone might have a nice microphone that they bought, but they have it like, an arm's length away from their face. And so it just sounds as bad as a laptop microphone. So you want to kind of find out what kind of equipment they have, and then suggest 6 to 8 inches away from their face. Maybe stack it on some books to make it closer to their mouth. And if they have if you are doing video, that's a whole other thing. So making sure that they have a really nice background, or at least a clean room behind them. And also that they just know that they will be on video, so that they sort of clean up. I'll send these reminders to guests, and still sometimes they'll forget, and they'll be like, oh, this isn't video, right? And I'll be like, it is, but it's all right. But you got to do the best you can. And then if you really want to go big, I've written an article about this for Descript, and I interviewed someone from 20,000 Hertz who does this all the time. They will actually send their guests a nice microphone if their guest doesn't have one.
Fancy.
Which is, sometimes like not all of us have that kind of budget. So, but there are services you can use that will actually rent out microphones to people, that they'll handle all the shipping, and that person will just have to ship it back. So that's a cool thing if audio quality is like absolutely paramount for you. I will also plug, though, that Descript has a tool called Studio Sound, where with one click you can actually just make even a tinny laptop speaker sound like it's recorded in a studio. It sounds really, really good. So that's always an option. But yeah, that's the best thing that I think you should do before the interview is just send an email letting people know what to expect, how to sound their best, how to look their best, and then go from there.
Preparation as much as possible. And I love to err on the side of transparency. Here's what we're going to talk about, that kind of thing. Absolutely. I also, for my own self, I like to keep water nearby, and I like to eat a green apple beforehand because it makes sure that your mouth is not going to dry out. How do you prepare?
The Apple thing, I heard that from someone, and then now I've asked like every audio engineer that, like, have you heard about the Apple thing? Is the Apple thing real? And some people say no, some people, but you know what? If it works for me, it works for you. Yeah.
If it's a placebo, I don't care.
Yeah. And also make sure that it's still water. I actually made that mistake today. It's, I have sparkled? A Soda Stream. I love sparkling water, and it's not good on a microphone. You're going to be burping all the time.
Oh, that is so true. I'm drinking a kombucha, and I was like, why do I feel like I need to mute every few seconds?
Right. Yeah. So many things.
Love that. Okay. So that's before the interview. Let's talk about during the interview when you have your guest on screen. We're doing it right now. We are recording. We're live streaming, of course, but this is going to be available for to watch and to listen to later. So in some ways we are going to be we are doing some of the things that we're about to tell you about, how we how we like to prepare for the during interview. So the first thing is to dedicate the first 10 minutes to tech setup and questions before you start. And we definitely did that. We popped in 10 minutes early and we troubleshot a bunch of things. We played with a bunch of buttons. And of course, right now we are streaming to YouTube. We're using a service called Restream. But the same would go if we were using Squadcast. We would have jumped on a few minutes early. We like to build that into our interview process. So if you know that you're going to be recording with somebody for, let's say, 30 minutes, maybe you schedule 45 minutes with them so that you can spend the first few minutes warming up and then the last few minutes cooling down. How does that sound for you?
Yeah, that's a great idea. And another good tip that I've heard from people is to, once you're done with that tech setup, once you're done figuring everything out, don't just jump into the interview. Give them a chance to maybe go get a glass of water or take a stretch break or something, just so when they sit down for the conversation, like that is what they're doing. And so you can really have that meaningful conversation with someone without them thinking about all the tech stuff. Yeah, that's about the best thing. Yeah, for sure. And then also I love if you're not making a video podcast, use video, because number one, it's always good to have just in case you want to do a short clip or something for social, but also people like to see your face. You'll have a better conversation if you're looking people straight in the face. But the caveat is the best way to do it is actually to look directly into the camera. So right now, I'm not looking at Arielle. I'm not looking at my screen. I'm looking directly into my camera.
I am too.
And that feels weird at first. It takes some practice to be able to do that. But it is a lot better for the person on the other end. Even if they're not doing it, if they're not as used to being on video, they see that you're making eye contact with them, and it just feels a lot better and makes them feel more connected to, the interviewer.
I have a tip for this, actually.
Yeah.
So first of all, Descript has an AI tool that will help you out with that. But even before, and we'll get into that in a second, but before that, something that I like to tell my guests, or something that I like to do if somebody's interviewing me and I know that they're going to want to use some of the video for post-production purposes, maybe to create clips for social media, is they ask me a question or I ask them a question and I say, for when you answer this question, don't look at me. Don't focus on having eye contact with me while you're having this conversation. But instead, I'm going to ask you a softball. I'm going to ask you a question that I know you know the answer to, and I want you to look right at the camera as you're answering it, because I'm going to clip this for social media. So I kind of step away from the actual interview and I say, let's break the fourth wall for a second, and or let's chat with each other for a second, and let's say, what is a really great question that I could ask you that you would be able to answer without being nervous. You know the answer no matter what. You're just going to answer right looking at the camera, and I'm going to use that for social media purposes. So I like that. It allows you to step away. It allows you to say, this is me really making sure that I am showing off your expertise in this subject area, and I'm going to look right at the camera as I say it.
That's so smart. I love that tip.
Let's talk about eye contact at Descript. Eye contact at Descript. Company-wide eye contact.
It's mandatory. It's mandatory at Descript. So we have this really cool AI tool. You might have seen it on social media. I know I did before we added it. It was it's basically an AI tool where you can take video, a talking head video, and if the person is looking, say, at their screen while they're reading, you can press the button, just AI eye contact, and it will move their eyes so it looks like they're looking directly into the camera. It's very creepy and very useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you used it for any of your videos yet?
I use it for every video.
Wow.
Yeah, because the way that I do my video podcast, like I want it to take as little extra time as possible. I do. I have a script. And so when I'm doing the narration, I will read my screen, and then in post-production, I will just move my eyes back to the camera. It's weird. And it's also, it's weird. Like it's weird to see in your own eyes because you're so used to what your eyes look like, but nobody else can tell.
I wish it could change my eyes to blue. That is next.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to try that on for size. If you want to see an example of me not using not using eye contact, but maybe I could have, if you go to Descript's Twitter X profile. So it's if you go to Twitter and you search for Descript app, if you're not following us already, we made a video recently about how to take a squad shot while you're recording on Squadcast. So how to capture the moment. You can press the camera button and take a screenshot of your session with your guests. It's a really fun tool that we built in a little while ago. So we made a video about how to do that. So if you go to twitter.com/Descript app, you can see a video where I am not using the eye contact filter, but maybe I should be. And I'll make another one soon where I am using the eye contact filter or the eye contact feature. And we'll show the difference between that. So that'll be a kind of cool thing to play around with.
Nice.
All right. So I see we have a bunch of questions popping up. I'm going to get to some of them now. Let's go to this question, which is, can you use custom virtual backgrounds with Squadcast? Currently, the answer is no. I'm not going to beat around the bush. You cannot do that yet. We have heard you. We see you. We feel you. We understand why you want it. And we know, and we're going to escalate that. And we think that our support team is aware, our engineers are aware, and we definitely understand why you need this. So please keep letting us know what you need, and we'll keep passing along those messages.
And now you can very easily do that in post-production in Descript. There's an AI green screen tool.
It's a great
that
workaround,
will
Ashley.
Really easily, will really easily change your background. So,
yeah.
But obviously sometimes you need it live, and we're working on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question. Can you, oh, I did that one already. Oopsie. Thank you. Next question. What are some services that take care of audio and lighting? I love that question. If you're asking about post-production, I definitely know of some services, but I also think Descript has a lot of that built into our post-production services. So if you needed somebody to do your editing for you, you could definitely, farm that out. You could hire some folks to do that. They might be using Descript, which you could probably learn as well. But Ashley, does anything come up for you for that?
If you're talking about the services that will rent out microphones to you, there's a borrow. I just looked it up. It's borrowlenses.com. That's a great site that will handle all of the shipping for you.
Another one is micrentals.com. It's pretty great. Yeah. Sorry, I tried to answer that question in a different direction.
No,
Thank you for understanding.
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Love that. Let's move on to the next stage in our during the interview process. So we're using video regardless of whether or not we're making a video podcast, because we might want to use the video for social media clips. But what comes next?
Yeah. So, once you're done with the interview, this is a mistake that I make every single time. Like, I have not figured out a good way to do it. So if someone has a good tip, let me know. But stop the interview before you're done, before you're ready to get off of the call with the person. So when you're done, you're like, all right, well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on to X podcast. And then you'll just say, and now I'm pressing stop. And then you do all the, so it was so great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Hope you have a nice vacation.
Yeah, exactly. And like you say, like, this will come out in a couple weeks, and you talk to them. And that is the time, because this is the key is that because it's doing local recording, sometimes there's a little bit of time, not usually any more than like 30 to 60 seconds at the end, where the final bits of the file need to upload so that you can get them. So what I always do is I press stop when we're ready to get off the call. And then I'm like, wait, stay here. I need you to stay for a second. And it's really awkward. So just set yourself a little reminder to press stop at the end of the conversation, but not at the end of the entire call.
Yeah. Like I said, if you need to record a 30-minute interview, maybe schedule them for 45 minutes. So you've got warm up time and cool down time. And I think that's a great time to make your post interview, your chats about, first of all, thank you for having me, but also, what's your social handles? And I would love to tag you once this episode comes out, and I'm going to make some social assets, and I would love for you to share them. And this is a question this is some advice that has been really helpful for me. If I ask my guests, where are you most likely to share this? It really increases the chance that they will share it, because you're really asking them pointedly, hey, I'm going to make assets. I'm going to make assets specifically for you. Where do you have a following? Where do you actually like to post on social? Because if you make let's say, assets for TikTok and they're never going to post on TikTok, you're wasting your time. But if they're really big on LinkedIn and you make assets specifically made for LinkedIn, that's a great way to, make it a little bit more likely that they're going to share those assets.
That's so smart.
Yeah, I mean, often the advice comes down to asking people and being really pointed with what you want to get out of your guests.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question that I want to get to. This question is, you said all recordings are local, so do my guests have to learn how to send me their local recording? I think my guests wouldn't like that. I agree. Your guests probably would not like that.
Yeah, no. So they don't have to. It's the way that the platform works is it makes that local recording, but the guest doesn't have to do anything, and the recording is automatically uploaded to your platform so that you can download it from your dashboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love that question. Thank you for asking. We're now going to move on to what happens after the interview, and then we're going to talk a bit about the editing process, how we move our recordings from Squadcast into Descript or from your remote recording platform into Descript, and then what you do with that. And then we'll talk a little bit about social media, just because I think a lot of people tend to have questions about social media and marketing and promotion. So this sounds like a good time for me to remind you that if you have questions, please type them into the chat. If you have technical questions, please join us for our office hours that take place every Wednesday in Discord. And if you want to join that Discord, you can do that right here. It's the Descript community Discord. Just scan that QR code, join us on Discord. There are now 15,000 people on Discord. It says 13. We need to update that image because we're crushing it in there. Do you hang out in there, Ashley?
I need to do it more.
It's
I need
fun.
to hang out more. It is great.
It's a great space. Yeah. And people are really, really helpful with each other. If you have questions, if you have ideas, you can even post the things that you've been making on Descript and people will give you a thumbs up and fire emojis and things like that. So we'd love to see you there. Office hours take place every Wednesday. I'll put that up next on the screen, but join us over there. Thank you to the folks who are scanning that QR code. And Ashley, let's talk a little bit about after the interview. So how do you stay in touch with your guests?
Yeah, I was actually going to turn that around to you because
Okay,
I feel
let's
like
do it.
you're the expert here. I'm only just now learning how to market my podcast and be more communicative with my guests and asking them what they want. So I would love to hear from you. But what are your best practices for after the interview?
Yeah. So I have a podcast called Trailer Park, the podcast trailer podcast, where we feature a trailer every episode, and then we do a little bit of analysis on that trailer. We even get a clip from the trailer creator, and we ask them a few questions about what went into the process of making their trailer and what is their show all about and things like that. So it's a very podcast. It's a podcast about podcast production. It's a lot of fun to make, and we use all the tools to make it, and then we tell our listeners about those tools. So we have a lot of fun making it. What we like to do is let our guests know about 3 weeks ahead of time that we've selected their trailer. So we're warming them up a little bit. We're saying, hey, your trailer is going to be featured in this season of Trailer Park, the podcast trailer podcast. Are you interested in submitting a voice clip that will be featured on the show? And then we'll probably also make some audiograms about that voice clip. So this gets them excited. It gets them thinking about the day that the episode's going to come out. It is probably going to send more people to their show once the episode with their trailer drops. So they're getting a little bit excited about what that could mean in terms of the growth for their show. The night before their episode comes out with the trailer, I make social media assets for them that I send them. So I make one for Twitter, I make one for Instagram, and I make one, the one that I use for Twitter also works on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And I send them those assets, and I make sure that before I have created the assets, I've asked them what images I should use. So I'm not just going on Google and I'm not Googling them and I'm choosing the first image that comes up. I am asking them, what is your most up-to-date cover art for your podcast? What is your most up-to-date headshot? How would you like to be called? Is there anything special I should know about the naming conventions of your episode? Because I am going to be writing all of those things in the description of my podcast, in my show notes, and also on the captions for my social media posts. So I really like to make sure that they are going to be happy with the social posts that I put out into the world so that they are likely to share it. Because I don't know about you, but I have been a guest on podcasts where the interview was great. I loved that. But then they would make social assets for me, and they chose my worst photo. And I'm not going to share that. And that's a shame because it was a really great interview.
Yeah, getting any one of those things wrong is like a guarantee that they're not going to share. So yeah, making it collaborative with your guest instead of you just being like, okay, I'm advertising you. Here you go.
Right.
It's great. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you want to see an example of somebody who makes really great social assets for their podcast, there's a really great podcast and Substack called Podcast Bestie. The creator is Courtney Kosak. She's great. She's been making podcasts for a really long time.
And she uses Descript.
She uses Descript. And you can tell, sometimes you can tell when audiograms are Descript audiograms. I love that. And she does such a great job making assets. She highlights her guests, and her guests like the images so much that they highlight her back. So it's a collaborative effort for sure. All right. We've got another question that came up. Can we use soundboard audio and effects when recording on Squadcast? Ashley, do you want to talk about this as it relates to your Vocaster?
Oh, actually, I don't. I mean, so I have a Vocaster and I also have a Rodecaster, a Rode, the Rode board.
The buttons press.
And I believe that you can absolutely do that through hardware like that, but I'm not sure about actually. I don't think you can do it natively in the Squadcast app.
Nothing within Squadcast as of now. We really like to focus on the recording, make sure you're getting the highest quality of your conversation, but there are ways to finagle it for sure.
Yep.
That was a great question. As we're coming to the end of our conversation, again, keep the questions coming. We're going to have a little bit more dedicated time for them at the end. But Ashley, let's talk about the editing process. So you've recorded, it's you and your guest, you and a co-host and a few guests. It could be a number of different scenarios that make up your podcast. How are you getting the files from your remote recording platform into Descript?
So there are a lot of different ways to do it, but the best way to do it from Squadcast to Descript is to click the little Edit in Descript button that you'll find next to your file. That will automatically import your files into Descript, and it actually won't cost you any transcription minutes, which is a super nice perk. So that's the best way, but there, you can always download the files. If you don't use Descript, if you don't use Squadcast even, you can always just download the files to your computer, import them into your editor of choice. So that's step one. I think step two is definitely figuring out, kind of listening to the audio quality and making any changes that you need to there, just to make it like listenable. So that when you're spending your hours editing, you're not constantly distracted by, someone's peeking or their weird mouth sounds or something like that. That's step two. What do you think, Arielle? What's your step two?
Yeah. So actually around a year ago, Squadcast and Descript integrated pretty conveniently. It made it so that if you had both a Squadcast account and a Descript account, you could press a button and your files would show up. Now it's even easier. So since Squadcast was acquired by Descript, the button is bigger and your files just go on in there. And again, it does not count towards your transcription time, which is unbelievable. So yeah, that's the first thing I do is I've recorded my conversation with my co-host Tim and sometimes a guest for Trailer Park, the podcast Trailer Podcast. And I can select if I want my files to show up as audio only or as video and audio. And that kind of changes my post-production process as well, because maybe I'm uploading video so that I can create some clips for social media, but more likely I'm editing just audio because we put out just audio on our podcast hosting site in order for folks to be able to consume just the audio. So I drop it in there. And then the first thing that I do is I studio sound the whole thing. Do you do that?
Sometimes, depending on the quality of the audio. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I usually like to test it. I record in this room. I have a really nice microphone, but it is not a sound treated room. This is my living room. I live in New York City. There are sirens outside. You can hear the subway rumbling by. So I like to press the studio sound button so that everything sounds really great. Again, as I'm editing, but also because I know that ultimately I am going to press that button. So I just kind of like to get that done. The next thing that I do is I shorten my word gaps. Do you shorten your word gaps?
I do so little of the automated things that Descript has.
No, I love
but
that. I love
no,
that. We're different.
We're different. I think I'm very old school because I started out in like a traditional DAW, so I still have some of those habits that I like do things manually. But yeah, Word Gaps is a great tool.
Yeah, I love it. So if folks are not familiar, Word Gaps is you can press a button and basically cut out, if you were silent for 5 seconds at a time and you want to cut out all times that you were silent for 5 seconds at a time, you can shorten word gaps that are 5 seconds to word gaps that are 2 seconds. And it just does it automatically. It is amazing. A similar feature is that you can get rid of your filler words. I don't tend to do that because I find that sometimes if I say as in the article a, like I am going to a grocery store, but I say a grocery store, it might cut that out, and then that makes my sentence not make sense. So I don't tend to do that. The power of doing everything with one click is sometimes too powerful for me, so I like to go through it and do it individually.
Agreed.
But Descript highlights all of my filler words, so that is super helpful when I'm processing things.
Yeah, and something else that I love about Descript that I do, this is my like next step, is I will go through, because I don't have a straight interview podcast. I will take clips of the interview and I'll narrate around them. So it's really important for me to find spots in the interview that I want to include. So what you can do in Descript is you can highlight those spots. And so I'll go through the entire interview. I'll highlight all the spots that I think are important. And I will click it's like a little magic emoji button that, and you can say, copy highlights. You copy those highlights, you paste them into a new composition, and there are your selects. And then you can organize them by theme. And you can put in markers so I'll say like, oh, this is where we talked about this. This is where we talked about this. Okay, we talked about this first thing here. So I'm going to put this, I'm going to copy and paste this up there. So then I have everything really nicely organized. And then I can start writing my script around the clips that I have chosen. So it just makes things so much faster.
I love that. So Ashley, at what point do you merge your recordings? I imagine you're not doing it on Squadcast because you like the control in being able to edit files separately, multi-track editing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't merge the recordings until I export.
Oh, nice.
The entire time you're still keeping everything separate so that you can make those little tweaks. I don't think there's ever any reason to merge recordings while you're editing.
Yeah. I think that's the case. I think so. Just so folks are aware of what it looks like, you might be, you'll select on Squadcast the recordings that you want to be moved over to Descript. And when it moves over into Descript, you'll get a dialog box that pops up and says, do you want these to be in sequence? Right. So then you can select that you want those in sequence so that you're making sure that we're in conversation with each other rather than having all of my files and then all of Ashley's files.
Yes. So by that kind of merging, I do automatically. Yes.
Yeah. And that's a super helpful tool and you can also do that with video. It's amazing. I never knew how to edit video before I used Descript.
Me either.
I was so intimidated by Premiere and all of those other things. Descript makes it so easy. I remember one time, walking advertisement for this company.
Yeah. I remember one time I had to edit I think it was a 2-minute video to accept a podcast award. And I had to do it in Adobe Premiere because that's what I had. And it took me like 8 hours to do. It was so maybe not that much, but like I had to constantly look up tutorials and stuff. And it was a lot of work. And now I'm just like this huge evangelist for video podcasts because I do it now. I do it for every single episode of my podcast. And I think it's so easy with Descript.
Can you imagine being a kid in school now as opposed to being a kid in school when we were kids in school?
I'm so jealous.
Though one time I had to do a biology project on mitochondria, and me and my project partner Owen, we had one of those like legitimately like huge camcorders. We spent the entire day. We didn't edit that. It had to be in one take.
Yeah.
What a mess. Looks like, so we've got a question from somebody in the chat who's asking if their question is coming through. I have not seen your question yet, so why don't you try asking it one more time? I'm sorry, but we'll try to get to everybody. Ashley, anything else you do for the beginning stages of editing? So we've done our before interview, we've done our interview, we have thanked our guests for being on the show, and now we're editing. But what goes into the beginning stages for you of editing?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. Once I've got the selects, that's kind of when I'm in the deep trenches of editing. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I do.
So you do choose some clips for social media, some video clips for social media. How do you choose those clips?
It always depends. The best is when something pops out at me while I'm editing, when I go, oh yeah, the guest said this amazing thing that is going to be perfect for social media. So I will highlight it in a different color so that I can go back to it later. Sometimes I have to do it after I've made the episode and I have to be like, okay, what's going to work the best on social media? So yeah, there are a lot of different times, but it's always from the transcript. It's always just highlighting it and copying it into a new composition and making that video clip.
Awesome. I love that. Well, we've got about 8 minutes left. Let's get to as many questions as we possibly can. Shout out to Christiana, who is keeping everything in control in the chat. Really appreciate you, Christiana. Christiana is our community manager. We'd love for you to join our community. You can do that by going to descript.com/community. Let's get to this question. What kind of time frame will, quote, wear headphones, end quote, not be a thing? Do you have thoughts on that? You made a face.
I guess I'm confused by the question. You mean like, when will we not have to wear headphones during a remote recording because of hearing the the feedback through your headphones? I don't know. What do you think?
I like headphones for a number of reasons. It makes me look legit. Number one, most importantly. Number two, it stops audio bleed. I think those are really important things. I understand that when you have a guest and they don't have headphones, it's really hard to be like, hey, any chance you have wired headphones somewhere lying around the house? Could you like get up out of your chair and go look for them? I know that's really frustrating. However, it really just does make your audio quality sound better. So yeah. I don't think that we're going to come to a time where we would ever recommend not wearing headphones, unless AI gets really advanced in a way that I cannot predict. But what does that spark for you, Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, anytime that a platform is letting you not wear headphones, it's doing some noise cancellation that you probably don't want in your final product. So headphones are better for audio quality. But also, if you don't like the look of it, if you're doing like a video podcast, say, and you don't like the look of having huge headphones, go online and look for audio in-ear monitors that musicians use, because those are very low profile. You can hardly see them. I used them for a long time, but I just don't like having to they're kind of finicky to put in your ears every time. And so when I'm working, I just don't want to do that. I just want to put on a set of headphones. But yeah, in-ear monitors are what you want.
Awesome. Can you tell when the upload is done?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a little icon that is animated, and it tells you kind of how long it's taking to upload, and then once it's done, that animation stops and you know that it's done.
Yeah. And if you need to leave, you can leave. Squadcast has a patent for progressive uploading, so your files are available for you. And if you just want to come back later, you can go into your dashboard or to your workflow drawer and you can see all of your recordings there. So yes, you can tell when the upload is finished, and it makes it super easy, super user friendly for you to check that out and for you to let your guests or co-hosts know that as well.
Yeah.
All right. We just have a few questions left. Let me find some that I think we have not touched on yet. Let's see. Is there a way to place markers when actually recording to go back and edit?
That is a great feature request. I don't believe that is possible right now.
Not currently possible, but definitely something that we will pass along to the group. We love that suggestion. Thank you. And I could definitely see myself needing it and using it. I would love to do that. So thank you for that. Let's go to this next question. Can Descript replace Auphonic or Loudness FM? Are you familiar with Loudness FM?
So my understanding is that both of these platforms are standalone tools that you can use to improve the audio and level out the audio for a podcast, the standard podcast volume, which I believe is -16 LUFS. And the answer is yes, Descript does all of that. I believe Auphonic basically does what Studio Sound does. Loudness FM does exactly what is standard in the MP3 export of Descript. Is that right?
Exactly. And Auphonic is a tool also that can mix your recordings.
Okay.
So that is what Squadcast essentially has when you can mix your recordings right there within Squadcast. It's using a service like Auphonic. But yes, that's another one of the things that Squadcast can do. So Squadcast and Descript can both essentially replace Auphonic and Loudness FM. Great question. Let's go to this next one. I use wireless earbuds and have never had a problem. Why is it frowned upon?
Yeah, because I mean, you may not notice a problem, and that's totally fine. It's more of an audiophiles don't like Bluetooth because Bluetooth. Remember what I was saying about WAV versus MP3? WAV is uncompressed and MP3 is compressed, and that's why you want to edit in WAV and then export to MP3. The same is true of wired versus Bluetooth headphones. Wired headphones get the full signal. Bluetooth compresses it because it needs to have that small file size to travel through the air into your headphones. So you're gonna have a little bit of loss to your audio. And you know, if that is what works for you best, and you don't notice a difference, then hey, like all more power to you. Yeah.
We really like to err on the side of best practices, though. So that is usually why we suggest always using wired headphones, is because sometimes when your battery is low on your wireless headphones, you're going to have some latency issues. You might not be hearing the folks on the other end as quickly as they're speaking. There's a number of reasons. And so we just like to err on the side of caution and say, wire it up when possible.
Yep. And never, ever use the microphone in your wireless
please.
earbuds. Oh, just don't do it.
Please make sure
Like,
everything is selected correctly.
Use your laptop mic over your wireless headphones, definitely.
Yes, I agree with that. I think if there are one or two more questions, we can take them. We're just about to finish up, and then we'll close it out in just a moment. But here is a question that just came in. If you have two calendars, namely Calendly, one for meet and greet and the other for full recordings, does Squadcast send out the link to guests via Calendly? You can set this up using something like Zapier. Or what you can do, a little bit of a workaround, is you can always have your recurring meeting that the link will never change as your guest interview link. So you can always have that within Calendly.
Yep.
How do you tend to send out links, Ashley?
This question made me realize, oh yeah, I have to set that up better, because right now what I have half of it set up. So I have I have a Zapier where when I make a new session in Squadcast, when they make a new Calendly event, it makes a new session in Squadcast. So then I have that link, but it doesn't send the link to anybody quite yet because the email address doesn't get in there. So I have to figure out that thing. But I think the fix is having that one link for every single interview. Because it's not like I have so many interviews happening that one might overlap with another and someone will bust in at the wrong hour.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's take this one last question. If the option was no headphones or Bluetooth headphones, what do we tell our guests?
I would say Bluetooth headphones.
You would?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I would say Bluetooth headphones, but really make sure that they are not that they are speaking directly into the laptop and not into the headphones.
Yes. The microphone is absolutely laptop microphone, no Bluetooth microphone.
Yeah. Although somebody in the chat, Jay Yao, who is a big Squadcast person, really great engineer, he might disagree with me on that. I almost would say I would rather there not be headphones, just because I have heard so many bad things about using Bluetooth, especially if the Bluetooth is not, if your Bluetooth headphones are not charged up and ready to go. But I really just think make sure on Squadcast or on your remote recording platform, you have selected the correct microphone and the correct input and output device.
And the very cool thing about Squadcast is you can select that for your guest. You can see which inputs they're using, and you can switch their microphone if they're using the wrong one. It's great.
Yeah. That's a relatively newer feature, and we're really happy about it. All right. It is now top of the hour. I know there are a bunch of questions that we were not able to get to. We will try to get to them in the coming days. But of course, a number of ways to stay in touch with us. First of all, we would love to see you in our Discord. I keep on mixing up Descript and Discord. We would love to see you in our Discord channel, and you can join that by going to descript.com/community. And we just put a QR code up in the top corner of our conversation right now. Thank you all so much for joining us. Ashley, where can people find you if they want to stay in touch or if they have questions about how you make your podcast?
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter a lot at Smashlyhamer. I'm also on Blue Sky at Smashlyhamer if you want to check that out. TabooScience.show is my podcast. And then always I am constantly posting new articles from creators up on Descript.com/blog. So definitely check that out. We have stuff about podcasting, about video creation, and also about AI for creators. So lots of useful information there. What about you, Arielle?
Thank you so much for asking. The best place to find me and to talk about Descript things is in our Discord channel, which of course you can find by clicking on the QR code or scanning the QR code in our chat right now. You can also hang out with us during office hours, which take place in our Discord channel, and that's going to be led by Marcelo, but we are hanging out there. We're always asking questions, answering questions. And my job as community manager, along with Christiana, is to highlight you, the folks who are using Descript, the folks who are using Squadcast. So please do get in touch if you want to be featured in some way, and we'll find a way to work with you to spread the word about how you're using Descript. I think that's it for now. Thank you to Christiana for being our chat maven, and thank you all so much for being here.